Hey, what's up guys, it's Liam or Wiggle on Clickheads back with a new video, and today we'll be taking a look at Skye, all of her abilities and how they interact with the other agents in Valorant. Now I will go through most of the agents specifically, but there are just a few ground rules I wanted to lay out there so that if anything isn't mentioned, that's because it just acts the way that you expect it would based on similar abilities in the game. As an example, Skye's Flashbang acts the same as any other Flashbang, so it won't work through a smoke, but if you're in a hollow smoke with it, it will flash you. If you want to flash someone on the other side of a smoke, you have to get the flash through to the other side of the smoke. The doggo's basic rules are that it acts as a near-sighted agent. Now, the near sight isn't as bad as if Reyna flashes you, but you'll never be able to see all the way across the map with it. And it also acts itself like an agent, where it will die to a molly, although some of them very slowly, as we'll see. And you can stun and flash it just like you can with an agent. And the last ground rule is basically that her ultimate is unstoppable unless you shoot it. Nothing really works on it apart from one exception that we'll get onto later in the video. So first up, we have Breach. Now, as of recording this video, we don't have the exact amount of seconds that the flashbang lasts, but Skye's doggo's stun does last longer than Breach's, whereas the flashbangs are very similar. Now, as mentioned before, you also, with Breach, can stun and flash the doggo. Next up, we have Cypher, who has a lot of cool, interesting interactions with the abilities. First up is that the dog will get caught by traps, and if you try to jump away from it, you'll get snapped back just like with an agent. But what else is interesting on top of this is that if you dive directly at the trap, it will just straight up destroy it. Now, Doggo cannot actually destroy the camera from Cypher, but Cypher's camera can tag the Doggo, which again goes along them base rules of it acting like a player. As it's just a flashbang, the traps and camera will not affect the flashbang, but of course the flashbang will flash the camera if it's in line of sight. And as mentioned before, the ultimate doesn't really do anything. You can't trap it and you can't tag it as well with Cypher's camera. Next up, we have Killjoy. Now, the little robot she puts on the floor that weakens you will not be set off by the dog, and the dog also can actually not see this ability apart from when it's initially placed, and then it will go invisible, and this cannot be seen or destroyed by Doggo or stunned either, so the dog's not super effective against it. It's just going to run past it. One thing that is interesting though is that the mollies can be seen by the Doggo, although they will not be destroyed. The Doggo can also not stun or damage the turret, which kind of sucks. However, following the basic rules, the flashbang does work against the turret. Next up is Brimstone. We'll just skip through this one. As mentioned at the start, you cannot flash through the smoke, but you can send it through to the other side and get him. And the molly is going to damage the wolf, and actually does significantly more damage than some of the other mollies, as you'll see later on. Her ultimate ability also goes through smokes and is unaffected by Brimstone. Brimstones are probably the least interesting interactions and work exactly how you think they would. Next up is the Boombot. Cannot be stunned by the Doggo, but also ignores Doggo. So if a Raze is trying to follow up on her Boombot, it's very easy for you to trick her into not knowing that your Doggo is there. And of course, the grenades are going to destroy our favorite pet here. But one thing that is interesting is that C4 also boops it again, adding that it acts very much like hitting it with another agent. I did try to break my own rules here as well by destroying her ult with the Raze grenade, but this also doesn't do anything. You seem to have to shoot this thing no matter what. So Reyna is where we started to do some serious extensive testing with the flashbang. Now, even though you can near sight the dog even more than it already has, and even though you can near sight her ultimate, we also tested this with flashes from Phoenix, and even when flashed, Skye's ultimate will still just go after you anyway. It might technically affect it for like half a second, but it really doesn't make any difference. As I just mentioned as well, the near sight from Reyna is actually closer than the near sight that you get naturally when using the dog. And seriously, is this the ultimate OP? You can't even flash it? What? Also, since Phoenix doesn't really have anything special, of course his wall is going to damage Doggo, and so does the molly, but they do so little damage the Doggo can just run through it easily without any issues whatsoever. Next up, we have Sage, and of course, her slow is going to slow down our newest four-legged friend. However, quite easy to dive over it and hit an enemy that's not expecting it on the other side, so something to always keep in mind. And of course, you can't slow the flashbang, it just acts as a flash. We did try to get the slow orb to slow the ultimate, but that also didn't work. One thing that's interesting is that Sage has a wall, which no one really else has in the game. And if the ultimate is stuck behind the wall, it will actually do damage to the wall quite significantly in order to go and chase down the enemies. I did try throwing it over the wall, and this isn't very useful. So you might want to just throw it at a wall and then damage it as well yourself to get the ultimate through to chase down an enemy a little faster. Next up, we have Skye, which we tested, but it's just as you would expect it. Doggo stuns Doggo, flashes Doggo, very similar stuff to what we've seen with the other agents. We did also try jumping the wolf at the ultimate, but that also doesn't do anything. We thought that maybe she might have counterplay to herself, but she unfortunately, or maybe it is fortunate, follows the same rules as everybody else. Next up, we have Viper. Of course, everything acts as you would expect. Flashing into the flash will get her, but you can actually use the Doggo to go through and get her really well. The decay doesn't really affect it. In fact, it didn't seem like it was taking any damage whatsoever. Her molly does more damage than Phoenix's does, so it seems to kill it quicker, but again, it's very easy to run through, so you can actually quite reliably run into Viper's ult here and find her with a dog and stun her for your teams to follow up on. It's actually a really, really hard counter. On top of this, her ultimate will also chase Viper down in the smoke, so it's really not a good day for Viper mains. Last up, we have Sova, whose recon dart doesn't show up our wolf friend here, which I found very interesting. I almost guaranteed that it would. However, much like the camera from Cypher, the owl drone will tag the wolf just like it would any other player. I'm not sure if that recon there is some kind of a bug or whether it's an intentional hard counter to it, but it's kind of interesting. What else is interesting is actually that the ultimate from Sova can kill the dog, but it won't show it up through the wall, which again is another weird interaction that I have to ask to myself, is this actually supposed to happen? And of course, yes, shock darts, as they do damage, will kill the doggo. So I don't know how many times I said doggo during this video. It was quite a lot. There's a lot of utility to talk about, which we'll be doing in future videos, but the thing that I like about this agent is actually the pop flashes. The flashes are really good across the map. They will flash as long as Phoenix's will, almost at max distance. They're easier to pop flash with, and there's places that you can put them that currently no other agent can, whether it's through them tiny little windows at the start of bathrooms here on Bind, or actually up and over through the ceiling. You can send it over to site to flash nearly every single angle. There's going to be some serious meta flashes to learn out with Skye when she releases, so you'll have to let us know what you think to her in the comment section down below. For anyone wondering why we haven't mentioned the healing, that's because it has the same rules as other healing in the game. It comes from her reserve, it heals in an AoE as long as they're in line of sight, and it's interrupted by damage, unless it's personal damage, in which case it seems to heal through, like if Raze nades herself, which is an interesting interaction in itself. Be sure to drop a like as it helps us out and lets us know you're enjoying the content, and you're going to want to hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button so you get notified when the videos go live. Be sure to have a great day as always. Take care and peace, people.